ready.
They say they need to ban the podcast equipment and take y'all mics away. And oftentimes when I listen, shit, I agree.
For real talk.
Hey, man, just because we know people don't mean that they know things. A lot of us was in the same classes with some of these folks. That don't mean they were passing these classes.
All the time.
It ain't the world leaving you behind, man. It's your line of thinking. You think the science stopped evolving because you stopped learning, and it don't work that way. I couldn't imagine voting for somebody who thinks identifying with me is identifying with a felon. That's crazy as hell. I'm Mr. Spann, and I'm approving these messages. This is the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. Let's go. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann, and this is episode number 74 of the show. And yeah, man, we are here for a third week in a motherfucking row, yo. Yeah. Yeah, you know, again, we got to celebrate these wins. We can celebrate these wins, baby. For real. But, yo, before we get into everything Spann Report Podcast and Mr. Spann Official related, of course, I got to let you guys know how you can get in touch with us here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and let your voice be heard. You can go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. You can also leave us, if you're watching us live here on YouTube and or Facebook, go ahead and call that number while we're doing the show, and you can chop it up with your man Spann live while we're doing the show. So go ahead and hit up that hotline, area code 313-288-0485, right? And that's one way for you to get down for and let your voice be heard here on the show. Also, hit me up on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, I am on Bluesky, so if you are on Bluesky, you can hit up your man Spann at mrspann.bsky.social over there on Bluesky, man. And if you're over there, man, I'll chop it up with you guys over there as well, man. Also, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and or Spotify. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get right here live on the show. We really do appreciate everybody who does that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety. Also, if you're watching us via YouTube, man, go ahead and like and subscribe on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys for doing that. Again, this stuff is free, man. Most of the stuff that I'm talking to you guys about is free. So if you go ahead and like and subscribe to us on YouTube, man, that really does help us with the growth of the show, with the reach of the show. And you don't even have to tell anybody about it because you didn't like and subscribe. And then it just sends this shit out to everybody else and let them know, like, hey, there's some shit going on over there. So so for those of you who would do that for us, man, here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast, we really do greatly appreciate it, right? Also, if you do want to give us some money, if you do want to help us monetarily, you want to get something back, tangible for your gift, we do have a store. You can go to the link will be in the show notes, where you can go to our store and copy yourself some merch. We got T-shirts, we got hoodies, we got undershirts, we got coffee mugs, we got mouse pads, we even got hats, man. I swear, we got hats.
Yo, we got some hats now, motherfuckers.
Yeah, man, we got some stuff up in the store, man. So we really appreciate everybody who does that. That is one way for you to put down for the show. It does cost you a few bucks, but you get something back in return for your contribution, man. And we really appreciate everybody who does that to help us continue to do what we do over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network, man. Real talk. And yeah, man, that is all. That is all for the business that we usually do for the Spann Report Podcast and the Mr. Spann Official Podcast, man. So we really do appreciate everybody who helps us out in that way. Real talk. So normally, like, I would have some random thoughts. I haven't really had a whole lot of random thoughts other than the fact that your man Spann worked hard as fuck this week, man. I did, man. I did. I was so happy that I decided to take Friday off of work because your man Spann was pooped after the job, man. Thursday kicked my ass. Yeah, man, Thursday kicked my ass, man. I was in somebody's house. I was working the main hole. I was back in somebody's house. I was doing, it was a whole lot of shit. And it was hot that day and we were shorthanded. Your man Spann, I am not long for that job, man. I'm looking forward to motherfucking like retirement day, nigga. Like, woo! No. Real talk though. Real talk though. I'm like, yo, man. I don't know how much longer I could do this shit. Like the job is physically taxing, man. And the older I get, it's like, I might need to like make some transitions into doing something else, man. Because yeah, man, the job can kick your ass here now and again. And Thursday, the job kicked my ass. I ain't gonna even lie, shit. And it just did, man. I was tired of the motherfucker. So we got that going on. But let's get right on into the show, man. Let's get into the show. We got some breaking news, y'all. All right. Our breaking news is the fact that former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer and an aggressive form of prostate cancer. So we're going to pull this story up. We get this here from NBC News. Let's see exactly what NBC News is talking about in regards to Joe Biden. Let me turn them up.
Good afternoon. We are coming on the air with breaking news. Former President Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, according to a statement released by his personal office just moments ago. They say the diagnosis, which was made on Friday, is a more aggressive form of prostate cancer, which has already spread to his bones. The former president is 82 years old, and his office says he and his family are reviewing treatment options with his doctors. They also say the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for what they call effective management. We will have much more ahead on this on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBCNews.com, and a full wrap-up tonight on Nightly News. I'm Hallie Jackson. This has been an NBC News special report. Thanks for watching. And
All right. So, one of the things that, first things first, you hope for a speedy recovery from things like this. One of the things that we've been learning about, one of the things that's been in the news over the course of the last week has been Joe Biden and Joe Biden's health and Joe Biden's decision to stay in the presidential race last year in regards to, when he finally decided to drop out of the race. There are some who felt like him waiting till July to drop out of the race fucked Kamala Harris and her ability to effectively form a winning campaign against Donald Trump. You have some who feel as though he should have dropped out earlier and he should have kept to the promise of being a transitional president, right? When he first ran for president back in, well, not first ran because he ran a few times, but when he ran for president back in for the 2020 nomination, he made mention of being a transitional president. And, once he had, been in the role, he decided he wanted to run again, and people felt the way about that. People kept talking about how old Joe Biden was and whether or not he was fit to be in the job. And I could tell you this right now. Because I remember some of the media coverage around Joe Biden and whether or not Joe Biden was healthy enough for the position back during the early stages of that campaign. I remember a lot of Republicans, especially people like a Donald Trump, going out of their way to say that Joe Biden was out of it, that Joe Biden was not fit for the position. And most of the people who would have been amenable to that type of information, they weren't trying to hear that shit from somebody like a Donald Trump, who isn't that much younger than fucking, Joe Biden, to be frank, right? And so the idea that the Democratic Party was hiding the fact that Joe Biden was having lapses, or that Joe Biden was having that he wasn't physically up to the job, to a lot of folk, man, and I'm just keeping it a buck, even including myself. To a lot of folk, whether or not Joe Biden was up to the task or not was irrespective of whether or not it was a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, right? Because Donald Trump, to a large swath of the electorate, represented an existential threat to their very fucking existence. And you see that now when it comes to the brown folks that he's sending out of the country to prisons in El Salvador, whether you see how he's doing the economic policy as far as tariffs are concerned and raising prices across the board, when you see how he's importing white immigrants from South Africa, as opposed to and saying that they are part of a genocide, as opposed to those who are actually dealing with the genocide in South Sudan, and not allowing for those folks to come here. When you see how he talked about those Haitian immigrants in Ohio, when we saw that, it was like, yo, no matter what's going on with Joe Biden, understand that he also has Kamala Harris as his vice president, and if something was to ever happen to Joe Biden, we are all right with Kamala Harris, right? Now, the other side of that is you have some who feel as though Kamala Harris was anointed, right? Despite the fact that Kamala Harris, even during the primaries, because of course, there wasn't anybody who really stepped up during the primaries, but even if Joe Biden stepped down, Kamala Harris was the next up. As his vice president, she was the next up. And the idea that we would just bypass the vice president and have a primary in the middle of a general election was fucking stupid. And to anybody who even suggests that, that's fucking stupid. To have another primary in the midst of a general election. Nobody was going to do that shit. And also, it would have been unfair to the vice president who was already in place, right? Who's already being elected on these primary ballots, right? So all of these states who were having primaries, guess what? She was number 2 on that ballot. People were voting for her and Joe Biden on those ballots, whether you'd like to believe that or not, right? So, we've been over the course of the last few weeks, especially this week, Jake Tapper from CNN has come out with a book, and they talked about, the medical, or some of the medical, adversities that Joe Biden had been dealing with over the course of that last year, and whether or not he should have run again or not. That has been, one of the things that they've been talking about over the course of the last week. And it's like, yo, man, y'all talking about whether or not he should have run again. Listen, we got problems that we dealing with right fucking now, right? And it's as if, the mainstream media is steadily focused on the mistakes of the Democratic Party. And right now, not necessarily focusing on, hey, man, we got issues that we dealing with right now that is really going to fuck people over and not only just now, but in the future, right? Because these tariffs, whether Donald Trump holds to them or pulls them back at the very last minute, or decides he's going to have an exemption for these and not for those and all these other shit, that doesn't allow for those who are really responsible for our economy to actually plan going forward, because of the unpredictability of the dude who's in the office right now, who thinks that tariffs are the way to go. Right? Now you have some people, especially those Trump sycophants, who believe that, the tariffs are well, shit, if you don't want to pay for the tariffs, then just buy fucking American. Just buy American. Don't buy those goddamn BMWs and fucking Maseratis and shit like that. Go buy Ford. We make Ford right here. And they don't even know that sometimes Ford goes through Canada. Sometimes Ford goes through Mexico. Sometimes Chevy goes through Mexico and Canada. Sometimes even the Chrysler goes through a whole bunch of different, the parts coming from all these different places. So even if you did want to just straight up buy American, the shit gonna cost you a little bit more because of the tariffs that the president of the United States put on you. And he told them people during the election that these foreign countries are going to be paying these tariffs, not you. But unfortunately, so many people refused to believe that the tariffs are going to be coming down on them. They were so adamant about the fact that they thought that these foreign countries are going to be paying these tariffs, much the same way that they thought Mexico was going to be paying for that wall down on the southern border. So, yeah, man, I just know that, with Joe Biden going through this particular health issue right now, people would wonder, like, yo, we voted for this guy. He could have been president. Now he's dealing with prostate cancer. Like, truthfully speaking, whether he was 85 or 45, he could have been dealing with an issue when in regards to prostate cancer, right? Like, I'll be 45 in June. And even now, I'm thinking about, yo, man, I need to start going, when I do my annual visit to, my physicals and everything else and get my blood work and everything else done. I need to, start getting my prostate exams and shit like that. That's not something I'm looking forward to, right? I'm not looking forward to it, but it's something that I got to do if I want to be here for, for any, like a long length of time, right? And I want to be here for my wife. I want to be here for my daughter. I want to be here for the prospect of grandkids later on in life. So, like the idea that, Joe Biden having a prostate cancer diagnosis at this late stage in his life, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's also not something that, we probably would not have seen from any other presidential, nominee or anything like that. Like, cause it's, prostate cancer, if you catch it early, it's treatable, but you got to catch it early. Right. And so, as I get older, I think about the fact that, like, yo, man, I got to start getting screened for this shit because, like, it could affect me, at a young age. I've had a great grandfather pass away from prostate cancer, there's plenty of different cancers that have popped up in my family that I'm, kind of sensitive to. So it's something that I think about this shit all the time. My mother died of breast cancer at 37 years old. So every year I have, I'm like, yo, man, like, especially every year after 37, I think is a blessing because I lost my mother when I was 17. Right. So, yeah, man, you pray for the former president, and hopefully I'm sure he has some of the best medical care the world has to offer. I'm sure that he will be able to deal with this, and you just pray for his family, you pray for his recovery, man. But yeah, Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, so we pray for the former president and hope that he has a speedy recovery, man. Real talk. Another story that we have here in the news, man. Torey Lanez is allegedly stabbed in prison, y'all. Yeah, man. They say Torey Lanez got stabbed up in the prison yard, man. So let me go ahead and pull up this story so we can get this story accurately. We get the story here. This comes out of Complex, and it says that Torey Lanez's social media was updated with news about the rapper's health after he was hospitalized following a prison stabbing. According to an Instagram post from his account, he suffered collapsed lungs and was placed on a breathing apparatus, but he is now breathing on his own and is in good spirits. So that was 6 days ago. So he was stabbed up. He was on a breathing apparatus, but now he's up and in good spirits. Okay. Torey was stabbed 14 times, including 7 wounds to his back, 4 to his torso, 2 to the back of his head, and 1 to the left side of his face, reads the update. Both his lungs collapsed, and he was placed on a breathing apparatus. He is now breathing on his own. Despite being in pain, he is talking normally, in good spirits, and deeply thankful to God that he is pulling through. He also wants to thank everyone for their continued prayers and support. Listen, man, I am not one to, doubt. I don't really want to doubt nobody's injuries and shit, especially when it comes to a motherfucking assault and whatnot, man. But who's to say that, he didn't just like kind of bump up against a knife like 14 times? Like, who's to say? Not never. I mean, we didn't see what had actually happened, right? Like, what we are hearing is coming from his social media and shit, right? I'm just saying, like, it's...
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. No wonder you get D's and everything.
And I'm sure anybody who, would doubt whether or not he got really stabbed or not, I'm sure his fans are thinking just...
Take a big step back and literally fuck your own face!
I'm sure that's what they thinking, but I'm just saying, though. Like, when he, was alleged and now convicted of shooting at Meg Thee Stallion. There was a whole lot of questions on whether or not Meg Thee Stallion actually got shot, whether Torey Lanez was the one who actually shot her, and then niggas was in the the social medias and shit acting as though they didn't know whether or not we were supposed to believe that he shot her or not. It was all in the blogs and whatnot. The blogs, even when his trial was going on, was like, yo, man, we can't. Torey Lanez didn't do it, and then the fucking jury decided to convict his ass, and it was like, wait a minute. So you gotta excuse a motherfucker for not being able to really just buy that his social media just updated that this nigga had a collapsed lung, was stabbed 14 times in the back of the head and the torso, and his lungs collapsed, and now this nigga just up talking like everything. I'm just saying. Nigga! I'm just saying. So I'm going to continue to read this story. It says Torey Lanez is reportedly receiving treatment in a hospital after he was stabbed in prison. As reported by TMZ, the 32-year-old Canadian rapper was stabbed by another inmate on Monday, May 12th, during an altercation in the yard of the California Correctional Institute to what the fuck? Tehachapi? Okay. Institution at Tehachapi. A source said that Lanez was taken to a hospital in an ambulance following the stabbing, which is said to be non-life-threatening. The motivation for the attack has not been revealed. He is currently serving 10 years behind bars for the 2020 shooting of Megan Thee Stallion. Earlier this year, Megan was granted a 5-year restraining order against Lanez, who has denied that he was responsible for the incident. He has continued to record music while incarcerated, despite a riot disrupting the recording session in February. How do these niggas do that? That's the one thing. That's the one question. When these niggas be putting out albums and shit, like, do they get on the phone? Do they got recording equipment in there? How the fuck do these niggas be in here like recording albums and shit when they locked up? Like, if you got information on that, please write in, call in, let a nigga know. It says in March, Lanez released his album Peterson, on which he reiterated claims he made in an ethics complaint against his lawyer filed last year. In the claim, which was rejected by the state bar, Lanez asserted that his former attorney, Sean Holley, was in some way associated with Roc Nation, with whom Megan signed a management deal with in 2019. He also claimed on the record that Chris Brown covered his lawyer fees while he was in jail. More recently, Megan's legal team successfully requested the court impose sanctions on Lanez after he cut a deposition short with disruptive and inflammatory behavior. So, yeah, man. It's been weird, like this whole Megan Thee Stallion, Torey Lanez sort of shit. There's a lot of people who decided that, Megan wasn't a victim enough for them, and we have to protect Torey Lanez. It is weird in the sense that, especially now, considering what we're dealing with Diddy. With Diddy being on trial right now, and Cassie being, questioned, and I believe she's been cross-examined, and she's been questioned by the prosecution and the defense attorneys, how it's as if we're on an every 5-year cycle, man. I'm just gonna say this. I feel as though we're on an every 5-year cycle where some dude of prominence, whether he be an athlete, whether he be some sort of musician or whatever, gets accused of some heinous shit, right? And the weird thing about it is that everybody believes that all of these rich son bitches be on some foul shit until they actually get accused credibly of some foul shit, right? But they get accused of some foul shit, and then suddenly we feel this urge to defend these dudes, right? To defend these dudes and like, especially within our community, within the black community, oftentimes. And I'm only speaking like this because this is the community that I'm a part of, right? But I feel as though every 5 years, there's a dude in the community who gets accused of some heinous shit. And, we feel the need to defend these motherfuckers because they made us dance a time or two, right? And in the meantime, while we're defending these motherfuckers, these dudes who we do not know, these motherfuckers are strangers to us. Somehow, some way, we lose credibility with the people in our lives who have actually dealt with some shit that these motherfuckers may be guilty of, right? And because we are outwardly defendant of these people whom we do not know. The only thing we know of these niggas is their celebrity and they made us dance a time or two. We go out of our way to defend these dudes. Now, the question that I would have for a lot of folk would be, their lawyers are getting paid at least to defend these dudes, right? To get these motherfuckers up out of trouble. Oftentimes they don't even lead into their blackness until they get into some trouble. However, what the fuck do you get out of defending these dudes who don't know you, have no use for you, and oftentimes are guilty of doing some shit that somebody you actually know may have had to deal with? What do we get out of that? What do you get out of that? And so, like, Torey Lanez was one. Like, I saw how, blogs and social media was making people believe that Megan Thee Stallion was making all this shit up, and she was the one who got shot. Megan Thee Stallion was shot. The blogs had y'all believing that Torey Lanez didn't do what the fuck it is that they said he did. The jurors found out something else. And I feel as though the same thing is happening right now when it comes to Diddy, and that case is going on right now with him, where, Cassie is stating, truthfully, some of the dynamics within the relationship that she had with this dude, right? And yet somehow, some way, we make it about Cassie and she could have left, or Cassie being complicit and wanted to be a part of some of these things, and totally forgetting the power dynamic that leads someone into being in a situation like that, or could lead someone into being in a situation like that. Everybody acts as though that couldn't have been them, right? Everybody acts, because it's not them in the moment, but everybody acts as though it couldn't have been them. And I'm just wondering, like, why every 5 years, it seems, we keep going through this fucking cycle of some prominent dude, whether he be black or white, gets accused of some heinous shit. And for whatever reason, people go out of their way to defend these dudes that they do not fucking know outside of the art that they produce. I will not understand it. I cannot understand it. I get celebrity and celebrity worship is a thing, but fuck, some of you niggas are too old to be worshiping these dudes. Y'all grew up with these niggas. Some of y'all are older than these niggas that you grew up listening to. Some of y'all are older than these niggas. You're like, hey man, I remember when Lil Wayne couldn't even cuss on records. Right? Now y'all claiming this nigga is the greatest rapper on earth. Like, I get it. Some of y'all think that, and that's fine. But the point that I'm making is this, man. Like, when it comes to celebrity, far too often these people are they are accused of some heinous shit, and it's what's even weirder is y'all have ideas of what it means to be a celebrity and what these celebrities are doing. The whole reason Cat Williams' interview with Shannon Sharp went viral the way it did was because Cat Williams was letting y'all, or was telling y'all, all these stories about all these other people, and y'all believe these stories so wholeheartedly because y'all wanted to believe this shit. And then someone comes out with some credible shit that actually gets the law involved, and then suddenly everybody's like, I don't know, man, that bitch had something to do with that too. Nah, she was willing to go on, I don't know, man. Even Mark Curry, right? Mark Curry, who was formerly a bad boy, who came out with the book, Dancing with the Devil, talking about Puffy, is now saying that, when it comes to, apparently there was some golden showers going on with Cassie and the freak offs and stuff like that. And he's on some yo, man, well, shit, if peeing on people it can get people locked up, then shit, I'll probably go to jail too. Like, bro, what? What? Right? So, even someone like a Mark Curry is trying to, bring light to the abuse that this woman may have been exposed to, right? And I know we were supposed to be talking about Torey Lanez. I know we're supposed to be talking about Torey Lanez, but what made me think about this story, what really caught my eye about this story was that, like, when Torey Lanez was on trial, how people were so adamant that Torey Lanez didn't do it. And how the blogs and how social media fostered the idea that Torey Lanez didn't do it. But the jury found Torey Lanez guilty. And I feel as though when it comes to Diddy and Cassie and whatever the charges are against Diddy right now are, that we're falling into the same pattern that, like, social media is saying that Cassie wanted it, Cassie deserved what she was getting, Cassie could have left at any point in time, and meanwhile the jury is hearing something that apparently y'all aren't hearing, because the blogs are forming an opinion for you. The internet is forming an opinion for you, and if Sean Combs is found guilty of what he's been charged with, y'all gonna be saying he didn't do the shit either. Despite the fact that many of the stories y'all been hearing about this motherfucker for the better part of the last 20 goddamn years. We've been hearing strange ass stories about Puffy for a long goddamn time, and now suddenly he's on trial for some shit, and then suddenly everybody don't believe the shit no more. Make that shit make sense. The other part, and I'm gonna leave this alone after this, right? But the other part is that, hey man, to anybody who's listening to my voice, like, the people who've dealt with any sort of abuse, any sort of sexual abuse, any sort of domestic abuse, they are listening to how you're responding to this. And you may wonder why the people in your life who may be dealing with some shit, why they haven't said anything to you. These sorts of stories are why. These sorts of stories are why they haven't said anything to you. They've listened to how you talked about other victims. So if it became a thing where they are a victim, like, will it become a thing where you find yourself blaming them for the situation that they found themselves in? Will you be telling them that she shouldn't have been wearing those types of clothes? She should have been going over there at that time of night. All these other things, right? Blaming the victim sorts of things. This is the reason why they don't speak to you. You're not a safe place to go to when it comes to those sorts of conversations. So it will behoove a lot of folks, man, to reserve judgment in stories like this. Now, when it comes to Torey Lanez, the only reason I was kind of making fun of it in the beginning of this particular segment is because of the doubts that he tried to put forth and how that narrative went wild on social media, right? And suddenly we're supposed to take an aggressive action against Torey Lanez seriously. We're supposed to take it seriously against him, but it was a joke when it was against Megan Thee Stallion. I want people to be aware of the patterns, right? Just to be aware of the patterns. That don't mean you got to agree with me. Just be aware. There's a pattern here. Anytime these dudes of prominence get accused of some shit, the pattern is we all act like this. It's a conspiracy against these niggas when ultimately we don't know these niggas and they probably did it. They probably did it. And it doesn't cost us anything to shut the fuck up until the facts come out. But I know the social media ecosystem doesn't allow for a lot of motherfuckers to just sit back and let the facts play out, because y'all got content to put out, and y'all got, like, it is, what's that shit Fonte said? If you ain't, what's the fucking line Fonte said? If you ain't putting out that every weekend shit for that weekend shit every weekend shit, then they wonder about your whereabouts or some shit like that. I know I'm fucking the line up, but y'all know what I mean, right? So yeah, man, Torey Lanez allegedly got stabbed in prison. His social medias was the one who let the story out that he got stabbed in prison. Not that this came from any like reputable source. It was his social medias that announced it. But yeah, man, it just kind of made me think about, hey, Torey Lanez and Meg and Cassie and Diddy, like these shit start intertwining in ways that I don't think people really take a really take a hold to. So yeah, man. We'll see what happens with Torey Lanez, man. I guess he'll recover soon or somewhat, because apparently he's already talking and shit, despite the fact he got stabbed in the back of the head and the torso with his lungs collapsed and all this other shit. He already talking, so I guess he gonna be all right. So we got that going on, man. Real talk. Another story that we got going on, man. Chris Brown was arrested in the UK, man. Nigga. Now, Chris Brown allegedly was paying for Torey Lanez's fucking legal defense. Ain't that a bitch? Not the woman be the paying for the woman shooter and shit. But we get the story here. This comes out of Sky. I guess it's like a British outlet. This is a 36-year-old has been remanded in custody until June 13th, meaning he will likely miss some dates that is on his upcoming global tour. Chris Brown has been remanded in custody until June 13th by a judge in Manchester. The R&B singer is facing an allegation of causing grievous bodily harm with intent and has been charged. He is accused of attacking music producer Abraham Dial with a bottle at the Tape nightclub in central London. Well, I guess the nigga is, at least he's equal. His hands are equal opportunity, I guess, man. Fuck. It says the incident allegedly took place back in February 2023. During a hearing at the Manchester Magistrates Court, prosecutor Hanal Nichols said that Brown had committed an unprovoked attack with a weapon in a nightclub full of people. She told the court that Brown had struck Mr. Dial with the bottle several times. He then allegedly chased the victim and proceeded to punch and kick him in an attack caught on CCTV. Brown arrived at the dock flanked by court officials. His hair was bleached blonde. He wore sweatpants with a black t-shirt. He spoke to confirm his name and date of birth, but did not enter a plea. District Judge Joanne Hurst said that the alleged offense was too serious to be dealt with in her court and sent the case to London's Southwark Crown Court. Brown will appear for a plea and trial preparation hearing in the capital of on the 13th of June after a bail application was denied. The 36-year-old was arrested at a hotel in Manchester in the early hours of Thursday by detectives from the Metropolitan Police. Brown's global tour is due to begin in the Netherlands on 8th of June, and he is also scheduled to perform in Manchester's Co-op Live Arena on June 15th. Prior to the court hearing, CPS London North's deputy chief, Crown Prosecutor Adele Kelly, said the Crown Prosecution Services reminds all concerned that criminal proceedings against his defendant are active and that he has a right to a fair trial. It is extremely important that there should be no reporting, commentary, or sharing of information online which could in any way prejudice these proceedings. Brown representatives have been contacted for comment, but they have not received comment yet. So, yeah, man, Chris Brown locked up again for some violence again. Like this, I mean, come on, man. Come on.
Oh man, hey.
I just hate for anybody who bought a ticket to those shows, man, who may not get to see this nigga. Because apparently he puts on a good show and shit, but nigga can't keep his hands to himself. Can't keep his hands to himself. And that's unfortunate, man. Shout out to all the motherfucking gangsters and shit in the music industry who joined the gangs and stuff after they got famous and whatnot. Like Lil Brown, Chris Brown and Lil Wayne and Kyrie Irving. Those, all these niggas that join gangs and shit when they get put on and whatnot. And I guess they feel like they gotta express their bona fides or whatnot, man. But yeah, that's unfortunate, bro. That's unfortunate. I feel sorry for all the young ladies who are excited to see Chris Brown or whatever, and might not necessarily get a chance to see him because the nigga can't keep his hands to himself. So yeah, man, we got that going on. But we also have another story going on. Apparently, there was a slave plantation in Louisiana that the motherfucker caught fire, man.
God damn!
Yeah, man, that motherfucker caught fire, man. I swear to God. I know a whole lot of niggas out here, man, with the barbecue, man. They was out here with the Hennessy, man. We was out here barbecuing and celebrating over the fact that this damn Denataway plantation burned all the way to the fucking ground, nigga. And I'm just like, yo.
Congratulations!
Yeah, man. So I believe we got a video too. Let me see if I can pull some video up about this particular story. Do we have video on this? We do not. This is this CBS story doesn't have. You know what? I'm gonna find the goddamn video. That's what we gonna. Nah, we gonna find video to this because we gotta watch this burn down to the ground. Hold on a second. Not away. Plantation on fire. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, let's pull this up. So let me go ahead and pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. All right, so yeah, we're gonna use this.
The Nottoway plantation in White Castle has been declared a total loss after a massive fire yesterday afternoon. Officials are now working to clear the remains of the historic site. Jordan Ponzio joins us live in Naperville Parish as that cleanup continues.
Brittany, it's now been over 24 hours since that fire started, and the fire marshal's office is here currently investigating the cause of that fire that completely destroyed the Nottoway plantation mansion. That fire started a little after 2 p.m. yesterday in the south wing of the mansion. 10 different fire departments responded to the fire. After the first couple of hours, it seemed that it was contained until high winds caused it to re-spark. I was out.
The winds wasn't nothing but the ancestors blowing on that shit some more, nigga. That's all that was. That's all that was. Please. That's all that was. As a matter of fact, the ancestors was in the wind singing. Yeah, that was the ancestors, man. They were just blowing some more. They were like, yo, no, we ain't finished. We ain't finished. You know what I'm saying?
Here this morning through around 1 o'clock in the White Castle Fire Department, we're still dousing the structure with water as hot spots kept arising. I spoke with the parish president, Chris Daigle, today, who said the 166-year-old plantation did not stand a chance against this blaze.
Nigga, the ancestors was watching the firefighters try to put this shit out, and they were just watching them do that shit, and they was talking to them niggas at the same time.
Nigga, did you know that I can see you? Nigga, you right there. It's on your nose.
That fire right there on your nose, nigga. We ain't letting you put this shit out.
An old facility like this is that old cypress material, right? It's what the installations are built out of. And once something like this gets going, it's really hard to stop.
Now, the cause of that fire is still under investigation. We will, of course, give you that update when we get it. Reporting live in White Castle, Jordan Ponzio, WBRZ News 2.
Yeah, man. So my man Leonard the Unit is in the chat room. He says, burn, baby, burn, man. I'm Disco Inferno up in this motherfucker, man. Oh, man. I got a picture of fucking, what was that? Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, like, cheesing like a motherfucker in front of this shit, man. It'll probably be the thumbnail to this episode, man, real talk. But, nah, man, like, it's been real interesting, right? So, the reason why we're a little celebratory here, it's Mrs. Beneficial Podcast, about this, is that, you know, we have a very, this nation has a very disingenuous relationship with the history of this nation, right? Especially now, considering who's currently occupying the White House at this particular moment, right? Donald Trump right now is currently trying to dilute some of the messaging of the history of this nation, especially considering the Smithsonian, the African American History Museum in Washington, D.C., and trying to change some of the ways in which the history is being displayed there and taking certain exhibits out of that particular museum because they don't agree with the fact that that history exists. And they don't want a certain history of this nation to be told. And so you got that going on. And then you have this Nottoway plantation in Louisiana who also is very complicit in not necessarily telling the exact history of that particular place, that place was built on the backs of slaves, and that place has become a tourist attraction to a lot of white folk across the country, that a lot of white people go to these particular types of plantations to have weddings, to have family reunions, to take pictures, and they look at this shit as a fucking resort. Meanwhile, at that particular plantation, they do not talk about the history of the people that were forced to live there and forced to work there, but they talked about the history of the fucking trees in that place. So the fact that this place was burned to the fucking ground, oh nigga, everybody, all the black people are just like, hey, like,
Oh man.
Hey.
Hey.
hate the fact that it was there, love the fact that it was burnt to the fucking ground. Right? We have a nation of people who think that like we just lost a preservation of history, and we would like for the plantation to be here for photographs and for people to come here and take pictures and things of that nature, but they don't fucking talk about the actual history of that place. Like I'm someone like I said, I go to New Orleans. I try to get to New Orleans at least once a year, man. I've never gone on one of the plantation tours. I've never been interested in going on a plantation tour because I know myself, I'd probably be way too motherfucking upset, and some white person would probably say something stupid, and then I'd be ready to fire on them. I'm not even lying to you. I just know me. I don't want to be there for that. I also understand that those types of places are there for other folks to go to. However, when you belittle, and this place has been known to belittle the contribution of the slaves who lived there, who built that place, and like almost erased their history, which is why it's almost rich, right? Which is why it's rich. That so many of them are talking about the loss of the history. Y'all weren't even telling the full fucking history in the first goddamn place, right? Weren't even telling the whole history of the place. But y'all were there for the fucking weddings and the family reunions and the fucking Civil War reenactments and all this other shit. Y'all didn't tell the whole story of that place. And so the fact that this place is a total loss, don't give a fuck about that place being burned down. The ancestors fucking spoke, and they couldn't have been more louder. And I'm sure they couldn't have been more prouder. So yeah, man. What was that? Not away is no longer away. Going on in Louisiana, man. We got that going on. We got another comment here. My man Leonard is in the chat. He says, let's see, what does he say? He says, our pain is their vacation. Says a lot. Yes, it does, man. Yes, it does. And like I said, when it comes to the history of it, if there were actually a place that preserved the actual history, then I don't know if anybody really would have been. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that some of us would have been upset about it, but I think there are other ways in which, those types of places can be preserved, so long as they're telling the fucking truth, right? If they're telling the truth about the place. But if you're going over there and you're not even telling the entire truth of the place, you don't have the names of the slaves who were held there, but you got names for the fucking trees there. Fuck you. Fuck you and fuck that place. So yeah, man, black people the world over, like, hey man, fuck that place. While white people are like, oh my God, I know the history, oh, we got married there, oh my God, it's so terrible. Fuck you, man, real talk. So yeah, man, we got that going on. Let's see, we got another story here. Oh shit, yeah. So we've been talking. I talked a little bit about, Joe Biden and like how people have been talking about, the loss of the presidential election back in 2020. So right now there's been a bit of infighting within the DNC. Right, there had been an election for DNC chairman and DNC vice chairs. Right. David Hogg, which was one of the kids he was a kid who was, I believe it was a Parkland. I want to say Parklands. It was a school shooting in Florida. I'm forgetting exactly which one. There's so many of them. It's unfortunate. But he was a kid who survived a school shooting. He became a very prominent anti-gun activist. I remember there was video of him when he was a teenager. He was coming up to Capitol Hill to come speak and meet with some congressional leaders, and Marjorie Taylor Greene was harassing him. Right, I remember this. He is now like becoming a political activist. He's now become one of the DNC vice chairs. He was voted in to be a DNC vice chair, and he's gotten a lot of notoriety because of his approach to the his approach to the job, right? So David Hogg has been one of those people who has been clamoring for more younger people to get involved into the process. He wants to primary more DNC or Democratic legislatures. He wants to primary them, get some of those older folks out and put some more young blood into those positions. And he's been very aggressive in his messaging in regards to that, right? And so there's been a call within the DNC that he not just he, but that there be another election held for DNC chair. For DNC vice chairs, because there are some bylaws within the DNC that one of those positions were supposed to go to a woman, right? The challenges came in February, and it did not happen where they are going to start holding these things, and it didn't come out into the public until this past month, right? David Hogg is positioning himself to say that the only reason these are coming out is because he's challenging the status quo. And so this has prompted his fellow Democratic National Committee Vice Chairman Malcolm Kenyatta to come out and speak, because he's basically saying that, David Hogg is out here lying to y'all about what's the real deal about why we have to have this new election in the first place. And so let me go ahead and see if I can pull this story up, because I believe we do have this here. Let me go ahead and do this. Where is it? We get this here from CBS News. And is there a video? I believe this is a video. There is. And so let me pause that and let's see exactly what Malcolm Kenyatta actually has to say about this in particular. Let me pull this up so you guys can watch right on with your man Spann. And here we go. Let me unmute that. Let's maximize that. Boom. And here we go. Let's see what
sound dense, highly procedural, way deep in the weeds of the Democratic National Committee. And it is all of those things, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It's an insight into the kind of internal conversations within the Democratic National Committee, which will inform the kind of decisions it makes going forward. So what are we talking about? Well, the DNC is in the initial process of revising or revisiting elections of two vice chairs. One of them is David Hogg, the other is Malcolm Kenyatta. Now, this matter is connected to a complaint about the way the procedures underlying those two elections was conducted. But Hogg is claiming that almost all of this is due to his plans to use a substantial amount of money in a super PAC to primary what he calls asleep at the wheel House Democrats. Hogg put out a statement that read in part, "It is impossible to ignore the broader context of my work to reform the party, which loomed large over this vote." Well, for a very sharp perspective on this, because
now here's the other thing. Here's another thing I think that is valuable to this particular discourse. It's not as though all of these positions within the legislature, right, within Congress, it's not as though any of these positions aren't up for grabs every 2 years, right? Your congressperson runs every 2 years. If there was someone who felt as though they could beat your congressperson, they could put in this, they could make themselves available for the ballot. They can go out and they can campaign on this ballot, and they can try to get the monies and the funding to campaign against this particular person and run for that seat. Every 2 years they could do that, right? And one of the things that I've been finding very interesting is that, like, many of the people that David Hogg has been coming after have been some of the elder black Congress people. So people like Clyburn in South Carolina, and people like Maxine Waters out in California, right? And I get you want to have a new generation, and I get that you want to have some more younger representation. All that being said, I don't know if that should be coming from inside the party, where the party apparatus should be the ones like looking to replace people who are already sitting in positions. I think the party should be hands off in situations like that, right? That's just my personal perspective. I think the party should be hands off. You being a vice chair and you facilitating these primaries, I think is an issue. However, the fact that the fact that there is a new vote allegedly coming up, not necessarily having to do with him doing this, but this was back in February before anybody knew that this is what his plan was to begin with, right? So I think that's important going forward.
He's very much involved and implicated. Pennsylvania State Congressman and Vice Chair of the Democratic National Committee, Malcolm Kenyatta, joins me now. Malcolm, it's great to have you at the table. Thanks so much for coming in. When I said you're implicated, your election as Vice Chair is also thrown into somewhat of we don't know because of this challenge. Hogg says it's all about trying to knock him out and his efforts to reform the party, and he's kind of a victim in all this, or implies that. I know you have some thoughts on that. Please share them with me.
So first of all, I'm happy to be with you, but with you on the silliest of topics. I know that there are folks at home right now who are asking, genuinely asking, down the street from where we are, Republicans are cutting Medicare, Medicaid, are putting us in a position where the modern day social safety net is going to be shredded, all so that they can make room to fund tax breaks for billionaires and millionaires across this country. That's what we should be talking about. But if we are going to talk about internal Democratic Party nonsense, we have to at least do it honestly. And the problem I have, and I talked about it online, and we'll talk about it in some detail today, is that David has such a casual relationship with the truth. He understands, like I understand, that this complaint about the procedural mechanisms of the election was filed back in February. The only reason it's being heard now is because of the due process standards that we have within the Democratic Party, where the person who filed the complaint gets an opportunity to put forward evidence, to put forward her claim. We then get 30 days to respond to her. Then there has to have a meeting set up. And so when I saw David's statement aligning this with this myth that he has been the target of, some Democratic Party smear campaign against him, it really frustrated me. And I was in a position where, as much as I don't want to feed into Democrat versus Democrat, nonsense when we have very serious things happening in the country, I cannot allow him to continue to go out and say things that he knows not to be the truth. And so to put out a statement like the one he put out, when he received information about this challenge well before he made any announcement about Leaders We Deserve, is to say to all these people who are listening to him and looking to him to be a voice of honesty in this moment, people have to question that. He's not telling the truth, and I'm going to be here today, unfortunately, to correct that record.
How do you...
Yeah. So, like I said, man, a lot of this stuff we now know. This happened back in February before David Hogg was out in the public telling everybody that he was, seeking to replace so many older legislators and to try to move the Democratic National Committee into a younger, more vibrant, allegedly, a more vibrant sort of party. David Hogg has positioned himself as a victim in this particular thing when that's not necessarily the case, and it was more so some procedural shit that happened because of the rules of the Democratic National Convention that that had they have a rule where at least one of the vice chairs has to be a woman, and because of the way that they did their particular election, there are no women in the Democratic leadership, and so they're trying to retract. They're going to revote. And hope, and in hopes of getting a woman as a part of the process. Maybe Malcolm Kenyatta is one of those vice chairs. Maybe David Hogg is one of those vice chairs. But I think the reason why David Hogg is really adamant about his position is because he receives so few votes, right? And so because he receives so few votes, I think Malcolm Kenyatta is safe. Maybe David Hogg isn't. And that's why he's trying to position himself as a victim preemptively before he maybe loses a position in the party after having already antagonized so many people within the party, right? And it's always interesting to me, and it's been interesting to me for a long time, man, because especially on the left, when it comes to the leadership in the party, you know, so many people on the left, especially some of our white colleagues on the left and everything else, man, they have, they talk so much about how Joe Biden is so old. Joe Biden was, you know, he was too old to run for president this time. And he was too old, like he was too old beforehand. And yet they keep propping up Bernie Sanders as if Bernie Sanders is the fucking answer. Also, as if Bernie Sanders isn't also about to be an octogenarian too. If he isn't already. Right? And the thing that I've always been critical about Bernie Sanders, the thing I've always been critical about him with, is that Bernie Sanders tends to act as though there isn't a racial component into how these politics are being meted out. That this is all class. That class is the overwhelming issue and is overarching over everything else. No, it is not. No, it is not. And if you're willing to piss off a grand majority of your base because you don't want to acknowledge their presence by just saying it's only class, you are not building a coalition to win. You're just not. You will piss off black people at your own peril. I'll just say that. Piss off black people at your own peril. So when David Hogg would come after people like Congressman Clyburn in South Carolina, or he would come after someone like a Maxine Waters in California, piss off black people at your own peril. Those people are not only effective, but they're also beloved by their constituents. If their constituents wanted another candidate, they would vote for another candidate. They would. I'm sure that they've had primaries before. How did those go? How did those like actually pan out though? Right? How did those pan out? We got a comment here. Please excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Desha. Bernie is older than Biden and suffered a heart attack when he ran the last time. But people forget that sort of shit. They forget that sort of shit. And oftentimes when I'm watching and I'm listening to some of these left-wing leaning, you know, people like Kyle Kulinski or the Vanguard, or if I'm listening to people like, I very seldom do I listen to these motherfuckers, but the Young Turks, like they act as though Bernie Sanders is the fucking savior of this nation. And Bernie Sanders, like, he couldn't get out of the fucking primaries. And the reason why he couldn't get out of the primaries was because he kept ignoring the racial component of what it was to be in America. He kept acting as though it was just class, and it's not. Bernie Sanders and people like Bernie Sanders and those on the left who act as though it's just class and they want to get away from the identity politics, as though being a soccer mom isn't an identity, as if being an NASCAR dad isn't an identity, as if we don't know who those identities are. White dudes and white women. Right? Those are acceptable identities. But when you start talking about the inner city, the urban vote, the black folks, and the black rural vote in many states, like a South Carolina, like a North Carolina, like in Mississippi and Alabama and in Arkansas, like we got folks in the country too. But somehow, some way, they get erased. And so that's why Bernie Sanders couldn't win, because he failed to acknowledge the fact that there was a racial component to all of this. And if you're going to deny the racial component in all of this and act as though identity politics is bad, meanwhile you're talking about these working class white voters, right? They talk about the working class, it's always white voters. It's not just black people. They're talking about white folk. But when you do that type of shit, you alienate people who are already within your coalition. And that's how we end up having folks, hey man, fuck it, I guess I'll stay at home. I'll stay at the crib, man. So we got that going on, man. But yeah, David Hogg, man, and the DNC, like just creating problems where, like at a time where we really should be focused on like everything that the Trump administration is doing and proposing and attacking us on, we got to deal with shit like this. So yeah, man, we got that going on. Republicans want to ban porn, my dude. Yeah, I want to say I was shocked, but I can't really say I was really all that shocked, man. I can't even lie to y'all, man. Can't even really lie to y'all. We get this story here. Oh shit, I'm not sharing nothing. Let me pull that down. But we get this story here. This comes out of, wait a second. Here we go. Excuse me. We get this out of Vice. Vice.com. And it says, in yet another instance of Republicans making their own weird psychosexual issues everyone else's problem, Republican Senator Mike Lee of Utah has introduced the Interstate Obscenity Definition Act, or IDA. The bill, if passed, would ban pornography of any kind at the federal level. Backed by the right-wing think tank Heritage Foundation, the Heritage Foundation, the same people who brought you Project 2025, the same people who brought you Project 2025, which is the blueprint from Donald Trump's presidency. And his fever dream of a fascist Christian nationalist policy plan, Project 25, Lee's bill wants to redefine obscenity so broadly that even the faintest suggestion of sexuality passed around on the internet, whether it be a GIF, a meme, or a freeze frame of an interrogation scene from Basic Instinct, will be considered criminal smut. This is the second time Lee has introduced the bill. Lee claims that this is all to protect the children, because isn't it always? Isn't it always? It's always, we got to protect the kids, man. We got to protect the women and we got to protect the kids. Anytime they want to pull some bullshit, we got to protect the kids. Which is always a Republican cover for banning something they do not like on principle, regardless of its effect on children. They said the same thing about drag queens. Children are a convenient cover for whatever fuels their fucked up view of the world. Hey, man, shout out to the editorialization here at Vice.com, and they are really going at it. It says the bill would mainly target the creators and distributors of pornographic content, potentially paving the way for nationwide bans on online porn and cracking down on tech companies that don't comply. The law doesn't make it clear whether you, the consumer of pornography, would go to prison for saving a racy image or video, though one would naturally assume that this is where this is headed. I didn't offhandedly mention Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation as a wink and a nod to that thing Democrats wisely made a big deal about during the last election, and then for no reason whatsoever completely dropped a winning message. It is a blueprint of the Trump administration. It is the blueprint the Trump administration is using as a guide, and a key tenet Senator Lee is trying to bring to life with his bill. The text of Project 2025 plainly states that porn is responsible for the propagation of transgender ideology. Of course, because when a motherfucker is jacking off, they thinking about trans people all the time. And the sexualization of children. And it suggests that throwing content creators in prison and shutting down tech companies that spread it. Yet, as much as they like to claim that it is about protecting the kids, you may note that the propagation of transgender ideology is prioritized before the sexualization of children. Okay, so here's the thing, right? I'm old enough to remember when Republicans acted as though they wanted to get the government out your life, right? They didn't want the government deciding, what kind of books you could read and what kind of, like who could marry who, they wanted the government out. They wanted to leave. It was almost on some libertarian type shit. Like, the government only gets involved in extreme circumstances type shit. But as they have become, as they've become the party in power, especially when they become the Republicans, now they want to make sure that, businesses can discriminate against you depending on what your sexual orientation is, or maybe even what your race is. They want to make sure that like libraries can carry certain books and they can't carry certain books. They want to make sure that your kids can only read certain things or not read. They want to make sure that like you as an adult could have a certain type of sex and not the sex that they approve. Like you can't have this type of sex that they don't approve of, even as a consenting adult, right? They want to make sure that you can't put on certain clothes or that they don't approve of. Like Republicans have went from being the party to say that they want the government out your lives to saying we want the government to control every motherfucking thing about your life. Which is what's been interesting to me, especially when they talk about how more and more people are becoming more conservatives. Like, yo, man, like, so y'all really trying to y'all really do want to like control how other people live life, whether or not it has anything to do with you whatsoever. Imagine me being upset about two men getting married as if it has anything to fucking do with me. Imagine me getting mad at a man wearing a dress as if that has anything to fucking do with me. Imagine me being upset at a child being adopted by a loving homosexual couple as if like that is not a better alternative than a child living in fucking foster care with people who don't give a fuck about them. Imagine that. But Republicans going on and on and on about the world that they know. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Despite the fact that Donald Trump won the popular vote this last presidential election, and despite the fact that the Republicans have, a majority in the House and the Senate, both of those majorities are very slim, very, very fucking slim. And the popular vote that Donald Trump won was less than 1%. Republicans know that a lot of the fucking policies that they present is not necessarily popular with the vast majority of the American people. Many people just stayed home. Many people stayed home this last election, unfortunately. And I feel as though, because in the ways in which Republicans talk about their majorities, I feel as though Republicans are going to overshoot their popularity when it comes to some of the policies that they're putting forth. They're going to do that. They're going to overshoot. They're going to, they're going to alienate a lot of people. They're already doing that. A lot of them are feeling a little duped, right? A lot of them are feeling duped. But the idea, though, that they want to ban porn, can you imagine, like, banning porn? Like, you know how many dudes, like, grew up on Playboy, Republicans and Democrats, both? Like, nigga, what y'all want to do? What? Blacktail? What's that? Penthouse? All these different what was that? What's the one about the titties and shit? Jugs, right? All these pornographic magazines and websites and shit like that. X Hamster and X Videos and Pornhub and all these other places, right? I mean, I don't know nothing. I'm just saying. The point that I'm making is, the government, like they are making themselves the police of your personal behavior, even within your own bedroom, even within the comforts of your own home. And I'm old enough to remember a time when Republicans wouldn't dare do shit like this. So it's as if these Republicans are not your granddaddy's Republicans, not even close to your granddaddy's Republicans. And they for damn sure ain't the Republicans of Abraham Lincoln, despite the fact that many of these current Republicans would like you to believe so. But yeah, man, the Republicans want to ban porn, and their staunch leader on this is a Republican out of Utah named Mike Lee. So we got that going on. Keep note of that, y'all. Keep note of that. Now, another thing we got going on here has to do with the fact that the Episcopal Church in America is refusing to resettle these Afrikaners from South Africa.
Nigga!
Yeah, man. So we get this story here. This comes out of, let me pull out of this story here. And let's talk about this. This comes out of NPR. All right. And so in NPR, they're saying in a striking move that ends a nearly 4 decades old relationship between the federal government and the Episcopal Church. The denomination announced on Monday that it is terminating its partnership with the government to resettle refugees, citing moral opposition to resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa who have been classified as refugees by President Trump's administration. In a letter sent to members of the church, the most Reverend Sean Rowe, the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, said that 2 weeks ago, the government informed Episcopal Migration Ministries that under the terms of our federal grant, we are expected to resettle white Afrikaners from South Africa, whom the U.S. government has classified as refugees. The request, Rose said, crossed a moral line for the Episcopal Church, which is part of the global Anglican Communion, which boasts among its leaders the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a celebrated and vocal opponent of apartheid in South Africa. In light of our church's steadfast commitment to racial justice and reconciliation and our historic ties to the Anglican Church of South Africa, we are not able to take this step, Rowe wrote. Accordingly, we have determined that by the end of the federal fiscal year, we will conclude our refugee resettlement grant agreements with the U.S. federal government. And to that, I would say, good on them. Good on them. Said Rose stressed that while the Episcopal Migration Ministries will seek to wind down all federally funded services by the end of the federal fiscal year in September, the denomination will continue to support immigrants and refugees in other ways, such as offering aid to refugees who have already been resettled. The announcement came just as flights with Afrikaners were scheduled to arrive at Washington Dulles International Airport outside of Washington, D.C. The first batch of entries after Trump declared via a February executive order that the U.S. would take in Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination. The South African government has stridently denied allegations of systemic racial animus, as has a coalition of white religious leaders in the region that includes many Anglicans. The stated reason for Trump's actions are claims of victimization, violence, and hateful rhetoric against white people in South Africa, along with legislation providing for the expropriation of land without compensation, read the letter from the South African religious leaders, which included among its 4 authors of an Anglican priest. As white South Africans in active leadership within the Christian community, representing diverse political and theological perspectives, we unanimously reject those claims. So, even the South Africans know that this is bullshit. Even the white South Africans in South Africa know that this refugee claim for Donald Trump and these Afrikaners are bullshit.
That'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
In addition to ties with Tutu, the Episcopal Church has a long history of advocating against apartheid in South Africa. It first began altering its financial holdings in the region in 1966, and by the mid-1980s, the church voted to divest from companies doing business in South Africa. Rowe noted his announcement comes as the Trump administration has otherwise all but frozen the refugee program, with Afrikaners among the few and possibly only people granted entry as refugees since January. So, yeah, man, as we talked about this last week, we talked about this last week as an overall attitude around the Trump administration and how they've been, antagonistic towards people of color, whether that be booting people who may have been here undocumented and sending them to countries to live in prisons indefinitely, like they're paying El Salvador millions of dollars to house migrants there, as they are demonizing Haitians who are living here, who came here legally and who were in a town legally, and demonize them to say that they were eating the cats and the dogs and the people of the people in the region, which was totally false, totally some bullshit, but they spread that propaganda. And so also the attitude about refugees coming here from quote unquote shithole countries, according to Donald Trump. And yet Donald Trump being totally willing to welcome Afrikaners and say that they're being racially oppressed in a nation where they are a minority in that nation, but they own a majority of the farmland in that nation. Make it make sense, especially considering they are not native to that land. Right? But they want us to believe that these Afrikaners were being victims of a genocide. Meanwhile, an actual genocide in the South Sudan, those people are still waiting for refugee status here. The people in Gaza, still waiting for fucking refugee status here. Can't get it. They're talking about sending the refugees in Gaza to Libya and giving Israel the rest of the Gaza Strip. Make fucking sense. They are letting us know by any means necessary, they do not want any motherfucking migrants from any places where the people are of color. Donald Trump made that much clear his last time he was president. So the idea that he would have South Afrikaners or Afrikaners, I know, like, I've been using this shit interchangeably, but that he would have Afrikaners come here and proclaim them to be victims of a genocide, which they are not being killed for their lands. Afrikaners own the vast majority. I believe they said it was like over 70% of the farmland in South Africa, despite them being less than 10% of the actual population. And so the South African government is trying to find a way to equitably split that land up with the people who actually are native to the land and also with the people who have settled in that land. And yet somehow, some way, these Afrikaners are being seen as victims of a system that is trying to make it equitable for them and the people who are native to the land. Get the fuck out of here. So, yeah, man. Good on the Episcopal Church. For taking a stand, because of course I'm sure, like, financially that doesn't necessarily help the Anglican and the Episcopal Church to not further along in that program with resettlement, but also just let people know, like, yo, man, like, we also understand this is wrong. This is wrong. And so long as we have institutions that will continue to stand up to this particular administration, because that's what we need. We need our institutions to stand up against this, whether that be the colleges, whether that be the legislature, whether that be the judicial branch, whether that be our social institutions like the church. We need all hands on deck, because what is happening in America right now is an assault on everything to get everything rolled back to a time where white people were undisputably dominant in the nation, but also where the discrimination is also blatant and regular and commonplace within America. Because that's what Make America Great Again meant. They were seeking a time where they could no longer be questioned about their position. They were seeking a time where they could be mediocre and still get positions of power. They were seeking a time where those of us who were in the minority, despite the fact that we were qualified for positions, would still not get said positions because of the color of our skin. Where they could mitigate their mediocreness, so to speak. A whole lot of mediocre white folk who are upset at the competition that they are facing, not only from black folks, but from brown folks, from our folks in Asia, and from our folks from the Middle East. Unfortunately, sometimes those other minorities get caught up in being the mono minority and also think that they're going to be assimilated into whiteness. And the white people are like, yeah, we'll use y'all in certain aspects to, like, kind of push back on some of the other minorities, but push come to shove, your ass going to be in the same fucking boat that they ass is too. And I think a lot of our Arab brothers and sisters found that out this last election, especially considering now that they're talking about moving those Palestinians out of Gaza and moving them to Libya after, the abandoned Trump and I'm sorry, the abandoned Harris and abandoned Biden movement. So, yeah, man, you got that going on. There's a lot going on, man. Let's see. We got another story here. Oklahoma wants to teach the big lie to high school students, man. All right, we get the story here. This comes out of where did it? Wait. Here we go. We get this out of NBC News. Is there a video attached to this? Let me make sure. Let me see if we got some video to this. We do not. Okay, so I'm gonna read the story here. This comes out of NBC News. It says, new standards for Oklahoma high school students promote misinformation about the 2020 election. Leaders in the Republican-led legislature introduced a resolution to reject the standards, but there wasn't enough GOP support to suppress it. So, like I said, we're gonna read the story. This comes out of NBC News. It says Oklahoma high school students studying U.S. history learn about the Industrial Revolution, women's suffrage, and America's expanding role in international affairs. Beginning next school year, they will add conspiracy theories about the 2020 presidential election. Oklahoma's new social studies standards for K-12 public school students, already infused with references to the Bible and national pride, were revised at the direction of state school superintendent Ryan Walters. The Republican official has spent much of his first term in office lauding President Donald Trump, feuding with teachers unions and local school superintendents, and trying to end what he describes as wokeness in public schools. The left has been pushing left-wing indoctrination in the classrooms. Walters said, we're moving it back to actually understanding history, and I'm unapologetic about that. The previous standard for studying the 2020 elections merely said that examine issues related to the election of 2020 and its outcome. The new version is more expansive. Identify discrepancies in 2020 election results by looking at graphs and other information, including the sudden halting of ballot counting in select cities. Interestingly enough, before I go on, so the sudden halting of ballot counting in select cities was directed by Donald Trump himself. It was directed by Donald Trump and fuck himself. In the states where in the places where Donald Trump was winning already, he wanted them to stop the count. In the places where Donald Trump was losing, he wanted them to continue to count. Ultimately, Donald Trump already knew he was fucking losing the goddamn election. But they're going to try to teach these kids that there was somehow a conspiracy for Donald Trump to lose that election. This is what they're trying to teach the kids in school. And this is, if you can teach if you can indoctrinate the kids now, then this is the information that these kids are going to like. This is the information that these kids are going to like operate with going forward, unless of course they are unless of course someone comes up to them with, and are able to convince them later on, and like, yo, that's bullshit. And I was there. I was old enough to know, and all this other, or like give them the books, give them the knowledge. But oftentimes, man, how often does that happen outside of school? Oftentimes, there's so many, like we went to school with some of these people. How many of them are reading books about this shit out after they get out of school? Not very many. It says the previous standard for studying the 2020 election merely said, including the sudden halting of ballot counting in select cities and in key battleground states, the security risk of mail-in balloting, sudden ballot dumps, an unforeseen record of number of votes, and the unprecedented contradiction of bellwether county trends. The new standard raises red flags even among Walter's fellow Republicans, including the governor and legislative leaders. They were concerned that the several last-minute changes, including the language about the 2020 election and a provision stating the source of the COVID virus was a Chinese lab, were added just hours before the state board voted on them. A group of parents and educators have filed a lawsuit asking the judge to reject the standards, arguing that they were not reviewed properly and that they represent a distorted view of social studies that intentionally favors an outdated and blatantly biased perspective. So these, like, understand, man, like, they are coming after not only your rights, but they're also coming after the education. think about what's going on with the University of like FAMU right now. Florida A&M right now, they have they've just elected a new president at Florida A&M. This lady has no fucking like credentials in regards to how to run a college, never having been a part of a college board or anything like that. And yet and still, you know, Governor Ron DeSantis made sure that she was a finalist for that job. And not only was she a finalist for that job, but I think they said they were paying her over $300,000 more than the previous fucking president of FAMU, right? So they're attacking education. Think about this for a second. They're attacking education. They have the president of WWE, Linda McMahon, is the goddamn Secretary of Education for the entire nation. She don't know shit about the education department, but she running that motherfucker. And the only reason they got her running that motherfucker is because they're trying to shut that shit down. We're under attack, man. They are attacking everything. GOP lawmakers can't muster enough support to reject the new standards. While Oklahoma teachers have expressed outrage at the change in the standards, others say they leave plenty of room for an effective teacher to instruct students about the results of the 2020 election without misinforming them. So, hey man, listen, this is why it's important for us to vote, and not just for us to vote in, presidential elections, but also in our midterm elections, in our off-cycle elections, whether that be for mayor and city council and our school boards. You got to vote in every fucking election, man, because they are like oftentimes, these elections are what really affects us on a day-to-day basis. It's not just the president. It's not just the president. And if you don't put, say for instance, if you have an agenda, right? I'm gonna say that if you have an agenda, if you have a certain way that you think that the nation should go, if you think that your state should go, if you think that your city should go, you got to put the people in place that you think are aligned with your sensibilities, right? But if you don't go and vote for the people who line up with your sensibilities, then you're handicapping your president, you're handicapping your governor, you're handicapping your mayor when you don't vote in some of these off-cycle elections. And then you get mad when, hey man, I voted for Obama, but I didn't get this and I didn't get that. Well, shit, you didn't vote in that midterm election, though, did you? So he didn't have the majority in the House and the Senate to get that shit that you wanted, though, could he? How could he do it if he ain't got the numbers? How could your governor do it if the legislature ain't got the people behind them in order for your governor to do what you want them to do? How can your mayor get them to do? How can you get your mayor to get the shit done that you want done if you don't put the city council in position to do what they want to do? You got to put them. You got to put people in place. And if they're not doing what you need them to do, vote their asses out. Get somebody else sitting there. But if you want them to do what you want them to do, you gotta put the support place. You gotta put the support pieces in place. And oftentimes we just vote for the top office and think they just gonna get it done by themselves. And that's just not how it fucking goes. It's not how it goes, man. Let's see what else. Oh shit. What's up, Pops? My father-in-law here. Real talk. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hope you're feeling better, Pop. Real talk. Let's see. You know what? I'm about to get up out of here because I feel my voice is getting a little tired. Last story. More than half of Latinos have never heard the term Latinx. Yeah, man, they say, I don't know what the fuck y'all niggas talking about when y'all start talking that Latinx shit. We get the story here. This comes out of NBC News. It says, let's see, more than half of Latinos asked have never heard of Latinx and only 4% use it. Okay, it says, even though Latinos in the U.S. have become more aware of the word Latinx, about half of the Hispanic population still has never heard of the gender-neutral alternative, the Pew Research Center found in a study published Thursday. The number of Latinos who have heard of Latinx has nearly doubled since 2019, when only 23% of the Hispanic population reported being aware of it. Now, almost half of the U.S. Latino population, 47%, say they have heard of Latinx, according to the study, but increased awareness of it has not made it more popular. The share of the Hispanic community who use Latinx to describe themselves remains statistically unchanged from 2019 to 2023. Only 3% of the Hispanic population nationwide used the word to describe themselves in 2019, which rose to 4% in 2023. While the percentage may appear low, that is still an estimated 1.9 million people who use Latinx to describe themselves, according to the study. Amid increased visibility, controversies, and even bans on the use of Latinx, another gender-neutral alternative broke into the mainstream consciousness in the late 2010s, Latine, which is often considered a more Spanish-friendly version of its predecessor. But the newer word seems largely unknown among U.S. Hispanics, according to Pew. 79% of Latinos have never heard it. 18% reported that they have. From Hispanic and Latino to Latinx and Latine, the different pan-ethnic terms used to describe people who can trace their roots to Latin American countries and Spain have long been a source of debate as communities grapple with identifying which terms best represent their experiences. But defined racial and ethnic categorizations, often defined in narrow terms, is an indication of how big and diverse the Latino population is becoming. Now, one of the things I've always wondered about this particular thing is like, and I've been hesitant to use it in regards to speaking about Latin folk, is because I've been aware to some degree that like a lot of them aren't necessarily using that term for themselves. And it's one of those things where I get to some degree where, as liberal or left-leaning folks, they want to be more inclusive in the language, and they want to, they don't want to alienate anybody. But at the same time, like, how do you therefore start coming up with terms for a group of people as opposed to allowing that group of folks to come up with a term for themselves? And to me, that's why I've been very hesitant to use a term for Latin folks, whether it be Latino, Hispanic, or what have you, because they have been very, in my experience, they have been resistant to the use of that term. And until they are more receptive to that, then I will feel more welcome to use the term. But to like impose that upon them because it makes me feel good about my sensibilities about inclusion and all this other shit, I feel like that's just me making myself feel good, not necessarily respecting their culture. And so, yeah, man, I'm not surprised by this particular revelation, because this is something that this is the first time that I've heard this. It's not the first time that I've heard this, man. Real talk. So yeah, man, we got that going on. I was going to talk about Kid Rock and him having to close up a steakhouse down in Nashville because he had a whole bunch of undocumented immigrants working there. But we may talk about that sometime later in the week. I might do another show later this week. Who knows? Depending on what the work schedule is looking like, man. Real talk. But yo, man, as you can tell, man, I don't know if y'all can hear it or not, but my voice is a little tired. So we're going to get on up out of here. But of course, before we do, I got to remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages. Of course, those voicemail messages will get played here and responded to here live. You can also hit me up on Bluesky. Excuse me, at mrspann.bsky.social. That's mrspann.bsky.social. Go ahead, chop it up with your man Spann on Bluesky. I'm also on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr_Spann. So go ahead and follow me there. Chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, hit us up on email. Hit me up on the email. The Spann Podcast, okay? It's the Spann Podcast at gmail.com. That's the Spann Podcast at gmail.com. Go ahead, email me there, and I will reply to those emails here live on the show. Also, subscribe and like the channel on YouTube, man. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Like the videos on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys for doing that. And it's all free. That part is free. You can also like and subscribe to the show on iTunes and on Spotify. And leave us a 5-star review. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get right here live in the show. We really appreciate everybody who does that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety. And also, go to our store. There's a link to the store in our show notes, man. Go ahead and copy yourself some merch, man. Get yourself a t-shirt. Get yourself a coffee mug. Get yourself a mouse pad. We got some stuff over there. And we got hats. We got hats.
Yo, we got some hats now, motherfuckers.
Yeah, we got hats. So we appreciate everybody who goes over there and supports us in that way. Not only do you spend a few dollars, but you also get something tangible back for your monies as well. And we really appreciate you guys for doing that. But yo, man, it is time for me to get on up out of here. I will talk to you guys again soon. But until next time, fam, peace.